Let's get straight to it. 97 Dodge Stratus. This is the 2.4 liter engine. Today I'm going to be changing the timing belt. This is the timing belt, idler pulley, and a tensioner. So I got my vehicle in the air and I have my jack stand. I'm actually using 2 jack stands because I'll be on here for a while. I got a couple of jobs I'm doing, so I'll be here for like 3 days. So you only need 1 jack stand. I'm using this beam right here. You can also use this piece right here, running from the front to back. The tire won't spin because it's front wheel drive, but if you're not using the impact, I would bust these lugs loose while it's on the ground, then finish getting them off when the car's in the air. So we got the tire off, and once you're down here, you can see your pulley. You you should have a plastic piece that's down here to remove. It's not that hard to remove. You remove a couple of these tabs and that piece should come right out. Let's go ahead and get this plastic piece up right here that's blocking this alternator. It's a 10mm bolt there and one down there in the corner. Once we get that cover off, now we can see our belt, our pulleys, and this right here is what we're going to use to loosen our belt. So basically, we're going to loosen this nut. There's no reason to remove the whole thing. Just loosen it. That way this can slide back and forth. And when you turn this bolt here, this is going to be what tightens and loosens this alternator pulley, and thus tighten and loosen your belt. Once again, be sure to loosen this nut before you start to move that. So before I move this, I want to mark it so I can know exactly how to put this back together. So I'm going to clean this area so the mark would stay. Alright, so I marked it in 2 places. I marked it right here. That way I can know exactly where to stop when I'm tightening my belt, because it's going to go this way when I loosen. So when I come to tighten, it's going to start to come back this way, and I want to stop it right where that mark reaches that mark. And once this mark is really close, that's when you want to finish it off with this mark. This mark would bring it home. You may be just a little bit off. You probably notice it can be a little bit off to the right or a little bit off to the left, and that would still look like it's in line. So this way here, this mark would get you set exactly where it was. So to remove this belt, let's go ahead and loosen this nut right here. This is a 15mm. Let's loosen that nut. Don't take it all the way off. Just loosen it, maybe about a half a turn or a full turn. All right, so this is free and loose enough where I can hand turn it. So I know I'm ready to start to turn this bolt. So I'm going to start to turn this one here counterclockwise, and that should move this down that way, thus loosening this belt. So by the way, this here is a 13mm. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it counterclockwise, and it should loosen this belt. Okay. So you can see how this came out here a little bit. So you get you a hammer and you can tap that in, and that should push that belt, that alternator back that way. All right, so once you got it loose enough, the belt that you want to remove is that idler pulley belt right underneath the alternator right there, because there is no lip on the end, so it should slide right off. You can pull it off from the top, or you can go underneath and pull it off. So underneath you can see it better. So this is it right here. You can see how loose this belt is now. So we can pull it off of this pulley here, just like that, and now your belt is free. So that's basically the instructions of getting this belt off. So to remove the other belt, which is the power steering belt, it's only 1 pulley. You come in here, you can see where I marked it in 2 different places. So there's 2 nuts to be loosened. There's this one here. It's a 15mm, and I marked it here. And you could barely see it, but it's marked on this little flat part here too, so I can know where to stop. And then this bolt back here, I marked it there and there and there. So there's two 15mm bolts. I have to loosen both of those, and once they're loosened, I can put my 3/8 drive in here and turn this counterclockwise to loosen it. And once it becomes time to tighten, I'll turn it clockwise, line these marks up, and then tighten both of these bolts. And that's how you loosen and you set your power steering belt on this car. All right, so this was actually a 1/2-inch drive. So I got that in there now, and I have my bolts loose. So I should be able to turn this counterclockwise and get this to move. All right, so success. You can see how those marks pretty much moved. This here is where I marked on here. That was right here. So now it's moved all the way forward, and you can see here, this was marked there, and that's moved forward. So when it's time to get our belt back on, we have to just move this back that way so these lines could match up again. So right now we should be loose, and we should be able to remove this belt from this pulley just like that, and also from the crank pulley. And that's it, that belt is off. All right, my next step is to remove this crank pulley. This is a 19mm bolt to get from the center of here. The best way to remove this is to use an impact, which is what I'm gonna do to get this out. So to get this out, I'm gonna basically use this 20-volt impact from DeWalt. If that doesn't work, I'm just using the big boy, the Earthquake. This is they're both 1/2-inch drives, and so this is a 19mm bolt. So I got a 19mm socket up here. So let's see if this does the trick. So that was pretty easy actually, and I just used a small one to get that out. Didn't even need to bring the big boy out. So yours might be as simple to get out, hopefully. If you don't have an impact, I recommend getting one. Back in the days, you had to use air, so I understand not doing it then, but they have so much good things. You don't even have to have name brand anymore. They have some cheaper ones on Amazon, and they come in handy for jobs like this. So we're gonna need a 3-jaw puller for this right here. You can see there's 3 slots to get the jaws through. So you're gonna need a puller with 3 jaws. I got my bag here. I'm gonna get these out so we can see better. All right, so these are my 3-jaw pullers to choose from. And then I got my 2 jaws over there. I won't be needing those, as we already checked before. We need a 3-jaw. So we're gonna select the best one. Now you can rent these, something like this, from the auto parts store, AutoZone, Advance, or O'Reilly's for free. And then when you have to pay them, then you get your money back when you return the tool. But just so you can see what they look like. Now, so you can see, like, these jaws here at the tips aren't that big. So this is the reason why I have so many different ones. So like this one here has a bigger landing here to grab, and even though it's bigger, this one here is smaller, and it also has a bigger landing area to grab, same as this one. So this one here might not be the best one to use, but it can get into tighter spaces. So this is the reason it's good to have a bunch of different pullers, because you never know, the space you need to get into and the type you would actually need. You should also be able to use a kit like this. You can rent one of these from the auto parts store as well. So either this or a 3-jaw puller should get the job done. So I'm going to use my longer bolt that I keep just for this. when you've been doing it as long as I have, you have a bunch of stuff that you keep around for things just like this. Alright, so that's out. That's loose. I can go ahead and take this bolt out, and that should fall right off. So with the amount of tools I collected over the years, I'm able to mix and match different things and get these out with no problem. But you should be able to rent the tool from the auto parts store, and they should have everything that you would need to get this off. And now is a good time to inspect this to make sure everything is good before we reuse it. And so far everything on here looks pretty good. Okay, so we have that crank pulley off now, and we can see up all the way up there. So we have to take this cover off. There's a 10mm bolt right there, one right here, one over here, and another one right above. It's probably be easier for us to get this. It's right above here. It might be easier for us to get that up top, but if not, it still wouldn't be an issue to get that from below. So we just need to remove those 4 bolts, and we can remove this cover. So with that bottom cover off, we can see our timing gears and our timing belt. So our timing belt, of course, is still on because there's nothing wrong with this timing. We're just changing all of this out for the water pump. So now that we have that bottom case off, it's time to remove this top case. So getting this cover off, it was only 2 bolts, 2 small bolts in there, one in the middle and one there. You can see there's no bolt on the outside here. So once I got the bolt out, the way I got this out was I had to turn this side out first, like that, and then pull up. If you turn this side up, it's going to be real hard getting that out without, trying to force it out. So remember to turn this side up first and then pull up to get that out. So once we get this cover off, we can see our timing belt, which is in terrible shape. This isn't even the main reason we're changing this timing belt. Obviously we're changing the water pump, but it's a good thing we are, because this timing belt is worn out and most likely a little bit stretched. The next step for us is to get this mount off right there. You can see those 3 bolts right on top. So I have the jack that I'm going to use with the piece of wood in between the motor. So this is the oil pan, and it's hard enough, but we're going to still use a piece of wood in between. So I'm not putting that much pressure on it, just a little bit. So now we can go ahead and get those 3 bolts out. So to create more space and make things easier, I went ahead and removed this reservoir. So now I can get into this area here instead of having to come from the top every time. So, and I also noticed that I have a little blockage going on right here. So now I'm able to fix this problem too. So see, I can get my hand in here now and do things versus having to come from the top every time. Once you get those 3 top bolts on that mount, you come underneath here, right on the bottom of this frame, and there's 2 15mm bolts, very easy to remove. So we gotta get those out. Drop those in the bolt bin. And now we're able to come in here and get this out of the way. It might take a while to work this out of the way, but we'll figure it out. All right, so what I did was I removed this 10mm bolt here, which allowed me to move these lines around. And there should be a bolt down here for you to move this piece around. Once you remove those, you take this line and you put it on this side of this little triangle here. It starts off on this side, but you don't really get much room. If you move it to this side here, now you can move this around and you can create enough space to pull this out through this part right here. This is why you need to remove that reservoir that's right here. So now that we have the part out, it's a good time to inspect it. Just take a look at the rubber, move this piece around by using two hands and see how much give it has, and if it's too much play and if the rubber is torn too much, then it's time to replace it. Okay, so to get this inner plate out right here, there's 3 bolts to remove. There's one right there, it's a 15mm. One at the bottom, you can kind of see it half sticking out there, and then there's one right there at the end down there. So let's remove those 3 15mm bolts. In order to get this bolt here completely out, I had to undo this little plastic piece over here on the side. It's just 2 plastic tabs that hold them in. You can use a prying tool to just pry those 2 tabs out, and then this can move back and forth and you can get that bolt out. The third and last bolt is right here on the bottom. All right, so once we get all those bolts out, this piece of the mount here is easily removed from the top. You're not going to be able to remove from the bottom that easy, so you have to get it out from the top. And one thing about this also, the bolts, some of these bolts are different sizes. So what I did was the bolt that I got from the bottom, I left underneath at the bottom. And the 2 bolts that I got from the top, the one closest to the front of the engine I left to the front here, and the one furthest back I left here. That way I know which bolts go back into which hole. Okay, so now we have everything out of our way and we can actually start to do this timing. So on the right cam sprocket, you can see the timing mark right there, and the left one is tight, but you won't be able to see it from here, but it's going to look something like the one on the one on the right. And down here on the bottom, you can see your timing mark right here. So there's 3 main timing marks for us to follow, and that's the 2 on the cams up top, and you got this one right here. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting this bolt back in here with a big washer or a buffer. You can use a bunch of small washers. I just like to have space between here and not put this bolt all the way in. So now I can turn my crank when I want to. To undo this tensioner, you're going to need a 6mm Allen wrench. I'm trying to get this in here. So counterclockwise loosens the belt and clockwise tightens the belt. And of course, this bolt right here, you have to loosen first. So once you loosen this bolt here, you'll be able to move this more freely. So I already cracked this bolt loose by turning this bolt counterclockwise, and now I can move this tensioner pulley, thus loosening and tightening this belt. So I'll show you again. So keep in mind that bolt is cracked free already. That's a 10mm bolt, and now you can see I can turn it this way to loosen. You can see the slack in the belt, and I can turn it this way to tighten. And then once I have it tightened to where I want it, then I'll tighten up that bolt, and that will lock it in. So since we're changing the tensioner, I just went ahead and pulled this one off by finishing removing that 10mm bolt. With this T50 torch bit, I can get in here now and get this idler off. So I'm gonna do that now. When I installed the tensioner, that bolt on this side I put in, Before we put that belt on, can't forget to put our new idler pulley on. Don't forget it goes right in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that in real quick. All right, so now that we have that idler on, it's time to go ahead and get our new belt on. Just make sure all your lines, your marks are still lined up and at the bottom, and then go ahead and put your belt on, and then we'll check our marks then. All right, so after getting our new belt in, make sure those timing marks right there are still lined up. And basically what I did was I put the arrow a little bit to the left. See that little white dot next to that arrow? I was pointing there. That way, when I released my tension and the tension of this belt, it kind of pulled it in where it needed to be. So that's how I got my timing set up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn this crank a couple of revolutions and see if this these timing marks are still lined up. All right, great. So after giving it a quick start, it started right up and ran really good. So I know my timing is correct. I didn't let it run for a long time. Obviously, the belts aren't connected and the motor mount isn't on. So I just started up enough to make sure it wasn't misfiring and I didn't have any vibrations or anything. So everything sounded good. So I know my timing is good. That water pump that I just replaced down there is good. And now I can go ahead and start getting things back together. Put this bracket back in through the top and start to put our 3 bolts in. So we got all 3 bolts into that bracket. Gonna drop this plastic piece back on here. So the way I got this out was I pulled this piece up, this side up first. So I'm gonna drop this side down first, and then boom, so just like that. So we drop this side down, turn a little cock, then drop this side down. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my 2 bolts in here. It was a bolt that went here and then one that went in the middle here. All right, so I got the top one on. Now I can put the bottom one on. And remember that this one has 3 bolts. That's one going through there, one there, and one there to hold this on. All right, so all the plastic is back on. It's covered. So now I can get this crank back on. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start to put the crank on as much as I can, and then I'll put the bolt on it. And as I start to tighten the bolt, it should pull this crank in. So that crank is all the way down now. So I'll get this motor mount in a little while, but I want to do this belt first since I have this space to get my hands in here. That way it'd be easier to get these belts on. So I'm gonna start with the inside belt for the power steering. So for the power steering belt, as you can see here, I basically, once I put the belt on, I got my 1/2-inch drive into that hole there, and once I turned the whole pump counterclockwise, these marks lined back up, and once that happened, I tightened that bolt down there, and I tightened that bolt down there on the back side of there, and that pretty much set the belt for the power steering belt. Now I have to put the main serpentine belt on. So I'm going to guide it around all of these pulleys. So I have the belt going above the alternator, back around the side of this pulley, and down over the AC compressor on the bottom. And from the compressor, it goes around the crank and back up to the idler pulley. Now I can bring this in now. That's just about perfect there. So we'll leave it right there, and so you can see that mark. And now, let's see, there was a mark that I left on this bolt here last time. That's supposed to be upwards. So let's check for that mark. All right, so you can see that mark on that bolt. It's now upwards. It's just a little bit off from that mark. So I need those two marks to be facing each other. So just like that, I got that mark right there where it needs to be. And I got this mark here lined up as well. So that's exactly where we need to be for our belt to be tightened. That's where it was the last time. So I'm gonna go ahead now and tighten this bolt all the way down to lock that in place. So remember to bring this back over here, and now we can put our 10mm bolt back down to the bottom of there. And also there this piece over here that we took off the side, this with these tabs, remember to put those tabs back into the sidewall. Let's get this mount back into where it goes. So what I did was I set it in there. I put the 3 bolts in up here at top, but none of them is tight. It's loose so that I can be able to line this one up. So you want to line it up where you can see through the holes on both sides. And once you can do that, we'll get our 2 long bolts and go from underneath. And we should be able to catch those 2 holes from here. So let's go ahead and let's put these 2 bolts in and line it up with that mount. So now that those 15mm on the bottom are tight, I can tighten up these 13mm on top. I put this coolant line back on to go to our reservoir over here.